Namaste. Let us do some practice before we discuss. Eyes are closed. Close your eyes gently. Understand the stage one of the practice. You are not doing anything. You are becoming aware. Eyes are closed. Adjust and align your body. Preferably sit in position, looking at the neck joint, moving the mind there, being aware of the sensation, comfort and steadiness. Moving the mind or looking at the shoulder joints, being there, feeling sensation, comfort and steadiness. Moving the mind on the entire body as if you are aware of the skin of the body from the top of the head to the toes. Experiencing sensation, comfort and steadiness. The outer level, what we normally see is the physical level or the gross level. And the second level is the subtle, the mental. So being carefree. I have been giving you a metaphor, the traffic on the road and the highways. The highways do not change. Traffic changes. Similarly, that mental traffic of thoughts, feeling, emotions, past, memories, they always change. They are the traffic. But the base on which these occurs do not change. So if we are aware of what does not change and what is changing, we are aware of the mind. That is one way to look at it. And that is why we say, let us look at the thoughts coming and going. What is very important that internally you see the thoughts are separate from you. That is the meaning, standing across a road and watching the traffic. Thoughts come and go, and you are simply watching the traffic. Traffic of thoughts. And in that state, look deep inside the forehead in the space and mentally say a couple of times, Asatu ma satu gamaya. Asatu ma satu gamaya. Asatu ma satu gamaya. So now we'll look into the meaning. Meaning is, let us move from the false to the real. And now we'll go for a knowledge. What is false? Just become aware of the mind which is constantly changing. What is changing is false. Breath is changing. Every cell of the body is changing. The world outside is changing. Nothing that is visible does not change. What is changing is false. We may have a stress today. Yesterday we did not have any stress. Tomorrow again the stress will go. So that is also the false. And you recognize that the stress, suffering, anxiety are false. 50% of the challenges you have already met. And what is real? Unchanging. It is independent. So that real, independent, is behind the body and the mind, is of the nature of peace and happiness. But one thing, the more you reflect on during the day, what changes that is dependent on something, it does not have an independent existence. Body does not have an independent existence. The mind does not have an independent existence. So you just maintain that awareness during the day. That will ease the burden on the mind. Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya. Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya. Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya. Lead us from ignorance to wisdom. What is ignorance? It's a false assumption, wrong notion about ourselves, who we are. Wrong notion about others. Wrong notion about the world. Wrong notion about our existence. What is wrong notion? What I think, it is not. And that is why the self-inquiry is required. If we do not contemplate and reflect daily, we cannot reach to the highest. And third, Mrityurma Amritangamaya. Mrityurma Amritangamaya. Let us move from the mortality to immortality. One master used to say that, do I have a fear? I died. Do I have anxiety? I died. So I die more than 100 times every day. There is no need to have a fear. There is no need to have an anxiety. There is no need to have a stress. So this is the way we need to think. We have to change the pattern of thinking. And when you move from the false to the real, those we change our behavior and attitude because now we have a right perception. Sometimes the mind does not listen to us. Mind forces us to listen in terms of the thoughts, feeling, and the sensations. And in those times, it is always good to do just purifying acts, looking inside the forehead in the space. There you drop mentally Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti. So, two things: the body is steady, and you are dropping Om Shanti in the space inside the forehead. One more thing: start breathing quick and short, gentle breath through both the nostrils. Let us do it today for a little longer period. Just gentle breath into the chest. Every time you inhale, the chest expands, and every time you exhale, the chest contracts. But maintain the steadiness of the body and dropping the Om Shanti. Continue. Just continue gentle breathing through both the nostrils into the rib cage, steadiness in the body. And you are driving Om Shanti deep inside the forehead. Continue breathing. We have started doing little longer period. And stop this breathing. Bring your awareness or the mind all around your head and the neck and experience sensation, relaxation, and stillness. Bring your awareness on the right arm from the shoulder to the fingertips and experience sensation, relaxation, and stillness. Move your mind on the left arm. Experience sensation, relaxation, and stillness. Move the mind on the middle portion of the body, from the shoulder down to the waist. Sensation, relaxation, and stillness. Move the mind on the right leg, from the right side of the waist to the toes, and experience sensation, relaxation, and stillness. Move the mind on the left leg. Feel the sensation, relaxation, and stillness. The entire body, sensation, relaxation, and stillness. In that state of sensation, relaxation, and stillness in the body, calmness in the mind, look inside the heart, in the space, and mentally drop Om Shanti, and then wait for a while Let me explain you in a better way. You're moving the mind inside the heart. Become aware of the space or darkness. The moment you become aware of the space and the darkness, mentally drop there Shanti. So you are aware of the space where you have dropped Shanti. Again, after the Shanti, you find the space. Again, drop Shanti. Shanti means peace. Om is the pure consciousness. Again, you find the space. Om Shanti. So you are placing Om Shanti onto the space of the emptiness. Om Shanti. Om Shanti. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Bring your awareness on the right hand. Bring your awareness on the left hand. Raise both your palms, place it on your eyes. Open the eyes inside the palms, know your experiences, and bring the hands down. From today's lesson, you should remember, recall, repeat. You should not forget. We have been talking about the 40 steps, and because of you have challenges, so I was deviating here and there. So the step 1, understanding real self. Real self is absolute existence, consciousness, bliss. Did we understand? Because we don't, that is why it needs an explanation. So it is of the nature of consciousness. It is of the nature of existence. It is nature of permanent happiness. And it does not change. So if I remember, after understanding, my mind will also remind me that body-mind complex is constantly changing, and I am not the body-mind complex. I will not get attached. I will not get identified with it. So our master explains by an example. We see the waves on the surface of an ocean. Waves always changes. You have small waves, big waves, very high tides, but the very water does not change. The water remains the same. The constituents, the physical, mental, physical and chemical properties of the water remains the same. So when I was discussing asatu ma satu gamaya, false to the real. So the waves constantly changes, but the water does not change. These waves are body, mind, intellect, thoughts, feeling, ego, anxiety, duality, conflict. Everything that is changing are the waves. And where they depend on the existence, they depend on the real self. If the real self is not there, if the water is not there, waves are not there. You think in that way. Every time you have sense of anxiety, oh, if the real self is not there, and that real self does not manifest the mind, and then the mind cannot have an anxiety. So this anxiety in the mind and the body all depends on that. They are like the waves. Why to worry? I'm not the mind, I'm not the anxiety, I'm not the duality. We have millions of waves. We have millions of people. So when we see millions of people, we normally see their body mind. We normally see their body and we understand it through the mind. Or if they have spoken something, we have some idea about their mind. The body mind, as body and mind, you, me, are waves. But behind that body and the mind, we are the real self. That is the step one of understanding. Understanding the real self means that I understand what I understand. I understand the reality. Can the real self be seen by the eyes? You cannot see your thoughts. How can you claim that you can see the real self? Because that real self is behind the mind. Even the body cannot see the thoughts. Eyes cannot see the thoughts and the feeling and the emotions. So we have three levels: the word physical level, mental level, and the third level, what we see, the spiritual level. Oh, science says that, this consists of atom, molecules, electrons. I don't see it. No, I need a microscope to see it. Same way we need a faculty of the mind should be developed to such an extent to see that real self. But why the master says that once I know the real self, it brings the freedom. You claim your body, you are confined in a room, you feel limited. But when you know you are the real self, you are all pervading one consciousness, you experience this sense of freedom. It is liberating. That is ignorance. What is ignorance? That body mind complex. And once I think of the body mind complex, then challenges in the body and the mind and the relationship and the world outside keeps on haunting me all the time. I'm burdened with the limitation, including the distress, dissatisfaction. I'm burdened with the fear of the death. So that mind identified clinging to the body and the events and things in the world outside. Limitedness. So that is why the master says, once I remove the ignorance, I feel it is liberating. Oh, you feel that as if now you have found the permanent happiness, peace, love, and wisdom. So remember, the first is the real self, which is of the nature of permanent peace, happiness, love, truth. I have to remind myself. Remind. When? At the time of the stress, at the time of the anxiety. The way I am of the nature of permanent peace, happiness, love, truth, and wisdom, the same way others are also of the nature of permanent peace, happiness, love, truth, and wisdom. So then my mind does not think this guy is crazy, this guy is good, and that guy is bad. So when I keep on thinking like this, good, bad, high, low, likes and dislikes, I'm living in ignorance. That is the second factor. So I should remind myself. Ignorance, not knowing the real self, falsely identifying with the body and the mind. So I've restarted the journey, but in a different way. So you remember these steps. So in the first step, we'll have 2 or 3 sessions. so that I'll make all the principles in the clear. And then we will maintain that awareness. Oh, this is the real self and this is not. So first is that we should know what is that real self is of the nature of permanent peace, happiness, love, truth, and wisdom, of the nature of consciousness. And then we have an ignorance. That is why I do not know. And that is why we are treading the path of the Eastern wisdom to discover that real self. So it means I have to remove that ignorance. How to remove that ignorance? By gaining the right knowledge. How? You are listening and learning, then you repeat listening and learning, contemplation and reflection, and you do the practice. So all the three steps should go together. So what is going to happen? But one more thing is important. You have to purify the mind. I have to purify the mind. And that is what every master talks about it. So what happens? You see, real self is there, understanding. Ignorance is there, that's why I do not know it. And then I have to remove the ignorance. By removing the ignorance, I have to purify the mind. How? That we are going to talk about it. And then what happens? The awakening takes place. Every master says association with the teacher is definitely required. You keep on listening and learning, but contemplate and reflect. Don't listen subconsciously and mechanically and habitually. Every time you listen to it and then you ask your mind, did you understand? Did you understand? Did I understand? No, let me listen it again. Oh, I did not understand the last part of the talk, so let me understand it again. So that is what the repeat listening does. And when you do the repeat listening with understanding, you start feeling a sense of detachment. You are not getting carried away by emotions and the anxiety and the duality, even by listening and learning. But this listening and learning is different because you are repeat listening, you remember it, you contemplate and reflect. That is going to change. And then you do the practice. When you do the practice, you erase all those impressions from the mind. That is not enough. We have to question the false assumptions. We have to reason. You're not made of anxiety. Anxiety is not your nature. Stress is not your nature. Distress is your not nature. Anger is not your nature. How can you say? One guy told me that I always become angry, and you say anger is not my nature. You are not angry at this time. If it is your nature, then anger will remain with you all the time. I asked him, are you angry at this time? No, I'm not angry at this time. It means it is your nature. It is not your nature. If it is your nature, it will continue to be present all the time, 24. What is the nature of water? Flowing, fluid. So even if you leave the ice outside, it melts and fluid. When you take a sip of water, because of the fluidity, it goes inside. It doesn't go like it does not a morsel of a food. Nature does not change. Intrinsic nature does not change. So our essential nature cannot be anger, anxiety, duality. I have to challenge this false assumption. Your mind says, no, if I do this, then I'll be into anxiety, so better not to do this. Now anxiety has taken over you. Instead, I have to think in another way. I'm simply saying, my friend, you start thinking in that way, and you will see the change. And practice, I told you. So every day, maybe in the morning and evening, you are doing a practice. You In that practice, we experience that sense of the stillness in the physical body, and we also experience the stillness in the mind. So the stillness in the body, stillness in the mind. And then we watch surface emotions. How emotions are coming and going. That feeling. Because now I have a clarity. Those emotions and the feeling have come because of my attachment, likes and dislikes. And that is how we get rid of the attachment. We raise our level of awareness. Higher the awareness, the level of anxiety, anger, agitation, conflict, they go on minimizing itself. We remain balanced during the day. We perform our duties responsibly without getting agitated. Do you remember I told you the state of our life is like a lion cub who was born and brought up by the buffaloes. So that lion cub started behaving like the buffaloes. When the lion chases the buffaloes, that lion cub also started running. Because not knowing my nature, not understanding my nature. That self-knowledge or knowledge of the real self is different from the worldly knowledge. The way I see your body, the way you see my body, the way you hear me, the way I hear you, the way I see the entire world around me. I cannot see the real self like that. We have to be very clear. Can you see the thought? Can you see the feeling? Can you see the emotions? We even cannot see through my eyes the thought, feeling, and emotions. What to talk about the real self? And that is why it is taking some time until the mind gains that ability in that state of the stillness and perfect calmness, the real self reveals itself. And even on the journey, you have already told me that you find a sense of equanimity, a sense of calmness returns. And if you find that there is a sense of freedom from the reactions, that would be a wonderful state. You find a sense of steadiness, clarity, inner silence in the joy. That is really wonderful. A sense of steadiness inside, in the group with people when you are living alone. That sense of the steadiness prevails. It means we are on the path, we are treading the path clearly. A sense of clarity is there. Inner silence is there. My mind is not crazy. Oneness. So now understand in 10 points. Master says we should listen and learn every day, contemplate and reflect the teachings every day. My mind would one day will remember constantly that I am the real self. The wisdom comes through continuous contemplation. First point. Second point, why continuously contemplate these teachings? So, this contemplation and reflection is like you are sowing a seed, you are nurturing it, you're watering it, and because of your regular contemplation, reflection, that knowledge becomes a mighty tree with abundant of the fruit of the peace and happiness. Second point. Third point. So how much time, you may ask, how much time we should spend? Start with just you it's a 1 hour session, and you just follow the 1 hour session with yourself. But if you can do more, wonderful. It is not about, but fact is that it is not about the time. It is about the timing. Did you understand? It is not about the time, it is about the timing. What does it mean? When your mind is internally ready, the steadiness and the calmness takes no time because it transcends the time. It has happened to you many a times. The third is, what about the time? No, it's not about the time, it's about the timing. Should I understand the meaning first? Yes. And that is what I covered in the talk. Should I understand the meaning first? Yes. First, understand the meaning. Extract the factual meaning intellectually. How? By listening and learning, by repeating. Factual understanding, clear understanding should be there. Then many people ask, what topic should I contemplate and reflect? Not too many topics. Who am I? What is the world? And what is the supreme consciousness? Or you can say, what is the real self? What is the existence? Just three. And also, what is suffering? So that happens, what should I contemplate becomes the fifth one. And then the sixth one is what techniques can help go deeper. You question the assumptions, false assumption. What are the false assumptions? That I'm into anxiety, I have a stress, I have a lot of problem, I'm limited, that guy made me crazy. They are all false assumptions. Listening and learning, contemplation, and the practice. This is what I say. You want to learn swimming, you have to jump into the water. So when you are challenging the false assumption, when you are listening and learning contemplation and practice regularly, so that contemplation, and because of the contemplation and reflection, that knowledge becomes a mighty tree in your head. Seventh, find how to balance the study, contemplation, and reflection whenever you have a time. But preferably it is if you wake up in the morning and make a specific time. No, I will continue to do it every day at this time, come what may. That will also increase the power of your will. Eighth point, what obstructs the process? Obstructions are dullness, laziness, distraction. I get overwhelmed with some reaction, anxiety. So I get carried away by the word is what obstructs the process. And by thinking, by contemplation and reflection, I can bring my mind back. What outcomes I can expect? Greater self-awareness, emotional resilience, and that will get you rid of anxiety. Inner stillness, calmness, kind-heartedness. So again, if I ask the question, how to sustain that habit? I think I made you very clear. How to sustain that habit? By experiencing its ongoing benefit. You did the practice, you felt calmness, you do the practice again, and again you feel the calmness. The ongoing benefit is enduring tranquility. And that will go a long way. So the step one is the master says listening, learning, contemplation, reflection daily. The wisdom comes through the continuous contemplation. The second step is continuously contemplate. First is the study, means listening and learning, and second is the repeat listening and learning. Regular. So when you contemplate and reflect again and again, that knowledge is going to grow into a mighty tree. How much time one has to spend? It's not about the time, it's about the timing. And timing means what? The moment you remember you have a free time and you are absorbed into meditation, into contemplation. Should I understand the meaning first? That was the fourth point. Should I understand the meaning first? Yes, we should understand the meaning first. Why? The human mind, the human intellect has a free will. It's a free intellect. We have a free will. We should use it. We don't use it. You know, my master used to say that the majority of the human beings do not know how to think. I have certain sensation, experience, and I fall into anxiety. Now I get carried away by it. So I have a lot of fear and I get upset and I have a lot of reaction. And this is the way I think. Oh, I have an anxiety. Okay, let me see. Let me notice and understand its symptom and the feeling. Oh, let me see what can I do. So I don't put more fire into the anxiety. I hold on my mind. I think consciously. Anxiety will go away. So that is why. Should I understand the meaning first? Answer is yes. What topic I should? So even you have heard it, you have understood the first lesson, but behind that, who am I? What is the world? What is the existence? And how to think, speak, and act. How to think, speak, and act means how to live. How to live in peace, happiness, love, truth, and wisdom in my personal, professional, social life. The more and more you contemplate, I will talk a little deeper in the step one. The step one, the master simply has written in one word: study daily, understand, listen daily, learn daily. But it has a deeper understanding that I'll take up in the following session. Topic is clear now. So, what technique will help? False assumption. I have to challenge my assumption. What are those assumptions? That I'm having stress and suffering, and I have a problem of anger and hesitation, duality, and a conflict. They do not stay. So when you challenge the false assumption, means you are using your intellect. You know that how you think. So I told you, time. Time is not important. Timing is important. So what is preventing us to fall? What is preventing us? Laziness, dullness, distraction, overthinking about any issue. Overthinking, it paralyzes the intellect. I'm making the session very simple and easy. Don't paralyze your intellect. Don't be dull or lazy. You make it sure that you do the practice every day. So, what outcome I can expect? Greater self-awareness, my friend. When you have a greater self-awareness, the duality and the conflict in the mind drop by itself. There is an emotional poise, an emotional resilience is there. Inner sense of the stillness will prevail. So I'm going back to the same. How to sustain this habit? I know you know the answer. So we have covered real self in nutshell. What exactly is the real self? 4 points we have covered. What exactly is the real self? Clear understanding. Then why I can't see the real self because of the ignorance. And that ignorance is not knowing the real self, false assumption. Then removing the ignorance is the way to discover the real self. And once we remove that ignorance, the awakening takes place. And that real self is of the nature of permanent peace, happiness, love, truth, and wisdom. Our master says that is what is absolute existence, consciousness, bliss. Can you see the consciousness? No. The sense organs are limited. They don't have the capacity to see it. That is why we meditate and we go inside. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Namaste. We'll meet again. Thank you very much.